Conti, bella palla per Rebic, Ibra, Rebic, il tiro, goal!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgren.
Hey guys, glad to be back. We're trying a new program, so hopefully when we're seeing this, it looks great. We'll see. I don't know, this is new for us too. This is our trial run, but we're excited. Hopefully it's improved and better for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom was decent, you know. Should we say the program that we switched to?
I don't care, but like,
Yeah.
maybe not.
We're trying remotely.
Okay,
We're
yeah.
trying remotely, which I guess is not a particularly well-known thing, but it's meant to be better quality, and I'm hoping that's how it comes out. It certainly feels better quality, but
Yeah.
you know, for the time being, it felt better because I was using these headphones last week anyway, so it's like another step up, which is good. But I just hope it's good for everyone listening and everyone watching. But in the meantime, it's just us, the troublesome twosome. Maddie is actually currently revising for exam, and those of you who are eagle-eared amongst us will know that he is a married man, but good on him, you know, for still going out there and doing his schoolwork at the age of 48. Got to be done, you know. No, but in all seriousness, good luck to Maddie. He's got some exams coming up and stuff that pretty big.
Yeah,
so
you may not know it by his
couple...
terrible opinions, but he's decently smart. You know, he's finishing up his master's right now, so props to him. And he just got a dog as well, so all kinds of changes in his life.
Yeah, so understandable that he's going to miss a couple of weeks. He's not going to be here next week either, but we will hopefully have an exciting guest on next week. So more information to come on that. And just at the start, because I know I'd forget otherwise, for the meantime, we've launched a new Twitter account as a backup. It's @1, the number 1, SempreMilan, because the other one, Twitter, have been arseholes about it, basically, you know. And to cut a long story short, there was a copyright claim that's been retracted by the people who've claimed, and it's now in Twitter's hands, but it's been 2 weeks since we heard anything, so, I think they're snowed under with, I don't know, apparently there was an election or something that went on in America, so I'd imagine that they're pretty occupied with some guy called Trump who's tweeting quite a lot. But yeah, hopefully we get the other account up and running, because that was like 30k. We're almost at 1k on the new account, which is great and everything. But if you haven't followed, then go and give us a follow, because we're basically just running it as we were the old one. And we'll have that as a backup when we get the other one back. That aside, all the admin aside and stuff, 2 games to recap, no wins.
I know.
That is the first time in a long time.
It's a weird feeling, man. Like, I kept saying, I'll never say we won't get a win until we don't get one, and we didn't get 2. I think I even guaranteed 2 more dubs, and couldn't have been more wrong. A loss and a draw. So that was, God. I don't know. Should we just dive right into those games? The Lille game, we got smoked.
We've got to,
We got absolutely destroyed. Asses handed to us. Very few positives to take from that game. And we deserved every bit of punishment they gave us, because we weren't there.
Yeah, we didn't show up. It's the first time in a while that we haven't shown up like that. You know, the Roma game, for example, was a 3-3 draw. It was our first non-win of the season, if that makes sense. But we scored 3 times. We looked very dangerous going forward. On another day, we'd probably win that 5-3 or something like that. There were plenty of positives to take. Then the Udinese game, we weren't spectacular by any means. We got the job done late on thanks to a bit of Ibra's individual brilliance. But perhaps, there are some that are saying the warning signs were there. We were slowing, we were looking more and more tired. Looking like we were finding it more difficult to break teams down, and particularly defensively, some mistakes had started creeping in. And unfortunately, that all came to a head against a good team who are well in form. You know, we spoke on the podcast, in the preview, about how good Lille's start to the season has been. You know, they were second in Liga. They haven't lost a game in the league, nor the Europa League, up until their meeting with us. And it just proved to be,
Yeah.
it was just a game too far for us, I guess. It was a game too far, and it must be said as well, it was an inspired individual performance from Yusuf Yaziki, who has since come out. Milan had a chance to sign and didn't, which is quite funny. But he was good. I mean, the first goal's a penalty. It's naive from Romagnoli to even put an arm anywhere near his back, because he's not going anywhere. whether you think it was a soft pen or not, whether you think there was enough contact for him to go down or not, you don't put an arm in someone's back when they're not going anywhere. He was on the edge of the box, wasn't shooting, there was no passing option, so it didn't make much sense. And then the 2 goals in the second half sort of came from our frustration, giving the ball away in bad areas, and Yaziki's a bit of a marksman from the edge of the box. And he scored with 2 really lovely finishes, and that was us. We were never scoring 3 goals.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they lost at the weekend as well, which is just typical because, like you said, they were probably, if we were the most informed team in Europe, they were second just based off fixture results. And for the majority of people who don't watch the Uber Eats League, now you got a taste of them. You look and then you see that they lost to a relegation side days later. So that looks terrible for us. But it is what it is, I was extremely frustrated, as was every person watching that game. There was really no reason for it to have happened. We thought we were going to be in control, but I think, like you said, it's catching up to us. Too many games in a row. Our players are getting tired. Even though the rotation's there, even though the substitutes are there, 5 subs a game, like it adds up. And international break, unfortunately, is not going to help everyone. It'll help Zlatan, which is arguably the most important. But you look, we had 9 of our starting 11 called up for these irrelevant friendlies against Estonia. Like Tonali started today. I refuse to watch it because I just don't acknowledge these games. But it's a really frustrating situation to be in because we were potentially a win or 2 away from securing the round of 32 in Europa League, and now we have to worry if we're even going to get our next win. Because we play Lille in the reverse. So It's interesting how one game could completely change the trajectory of your team. And I know everyone's saying don't panic, and we shouldn't, and I agree with that, but we only get 6 games to qualify in Europa. We won 2, we lost 1, and based off that performance, it's hard pressed to say we'll probably win the away match now. So as long as we could get some sort of result there and then get 2 more wins out, we should be good, but it definitely is it's cagey, it's scary.
Yeah, it is. 100% it is. I mean, there are those who will have said, should have seen this coming based on the kind of team that Lille are. I think we knew that the unbeaten run would end at some point. I just don't think we expected it to happen like that.
Exactly.
It was a bit of a shock to the system to see us completely outplayed by a team, which we were. There's no mincing words about it. We were completely outplayed, particularly down the middle. Thought Renato Sanchez and obviously Yaziki were the best players on the pitch by a country mile. Tonali didn't get in the game because of that. Even Kessié couldn't pocket Renato Sanchez, who was absolutely fantastic. As you say, one game, one bad defeat can really change your perspective on things, and it goes to show that the motto that we had before of taking it a game at a time is so important, because we were talking on the podcast, and we're guilty for it in a sense. We were talking on the podcast about, right, we beat Lille and we're just 1 win away then from qualifying. We were saying it as if it was kind of a formality, and really you just need to win, take it 1 game at a time, and that's been our strength over the last few months, and it will still be our strength, I think. I think there are a number of different factors that sort of contributed to the downfall on that particular night, but got to hold your hands up sometimes and say we were beaten by the better team on the night. Their result afterwards, they were 3-0 down against Brest after 30 minutes or something, so everyone was joking, saying we've broken them and things like that. But I guess, if anything, it shows a vulnerability. It's like, when we get another crack at them, we need to prove that really was a blip and that we can stand toe-to-toe with these teams, because if we get beat again, then we might as well write the Europa League off. Honestly, not in terms of not qualifying, but it's like, if we can't beat the second best team in our group on paper, then we aren't going to go very far in the competition.
A positive, kind of. One thing to take from it, I suppose, I don't know if it's positive or negative, but it showed the holes in our game. It showed the blueprint of how to beat us, because why am I spacing the team we just drew with on the Hellas Verona? They play, obviously not to the same caliber, but a very similar style game to Lille. So if anything, you would think that the Lille match was the perfect warm-up for the Hellas Verona's game, and obviously we couldn't get a win there either. So now we know what the style is to beat us. If Pioli recognizes it, the players recognize it, and we could fix that in the next few weeks, then maybe we are golden and we bounce back positively. But until then, we suffered our worst European home defeat in the club's history, and that's just where it's at.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. When you put it like that. Funnily enough, the previous worst home defeat was 2-0 in the Champions League by Lille.
Yeah.
So we've got form for it, I suppose, and that was in 2006-07, and we went on to win the competition. So it goes to show that we have form, perhaps, for losing home games against opponents we shouldn't, when we shouldn't. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's just a really frustrating stamp to end a 24-game unbeaten run, because now people are going to remember the run for the historic defeat at the end of it, not for what it was building up to it.
I think there's still a chance, and we'll come on to obviously the Hellas Verona game, but there's still a chance for the domestic unbeaten run to be remembered.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Like
what is our domestic record? I don't know.
We're on 19 in Serie A now, without defeat. So there's a chance for that to still go beyond 30, whatever. Again, don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but there's a chance still to rescue that situation.
If we continue to play like we did these last 2 games, though, it's not going to happen.
It'll go against Napoli, to be honest.
Yeah, go real quick.
But yeah, a real night to forget. Just a couple of points on the Lille game. Funny that, again, Ibra just looks completely ineffectual in the Europa League. He scored a goal at Shamrock Rovers, but he hasn't scored since. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's a strange one. Like, if Serie A is his, the thing that keeps him going, he's on 8 goals, he's the top scorer in that, he can't seem to buy a goal in Europe.
It is strange, and I think a part of it is obviously Pioli wants to rest him. He doesn't even want to play him, but Zlatan, Zlatan, that he's demanding he starts, and then he's coming off right at halftime or a little after. So he is losing, half a game's worth of opportunities, but at the same time, he's not even finding those chances in the bit that he is playing, and it's very strange. I guess I don't know what it is. If you just say Europa's like a younger competition, you need those faster, more agile, younger players, and that's just the perfect foil to Zlatan's style that he can't keep up with that. I don't know what it is. I genuinely don't. But it's odd, because I was thinking that as well. Like you said, he's on 8 goals in the league. He's a top goal scorer by a margin, and he cannot buy a goal in Europa League. It's strange.
I wonder if there's a case to be made for how teams in Serie A perhaps can overthink it at times, where they think, okay, Ibra is definitely our main goal threat, but they focus, because they know so much about us, because we play in the same league, etc. They overthink it, and they think, right, we need to stop Çalhanoğlu as well, we need to stop Leão this way, we need to force the ball over to Salamakers because he's not going to do as much damage. Whereas Europa League teams are just like, he's the main guy, stop him, and we've got a pretty good chance.
And that's probably true.
They're just like, we know Zlatan's pretty good, so we need to try and stop the ball getting to him. And teams have done it. I mean, even Sparta managed to do it. Obviously, he didn't. He played at Celtic. Did he? What? I think he got an assist, didn't he, against Sparta Prague for the Brahim Díaz goal. But yeah, the goals haven't been there. Not going to criticise, because, like I say, he's top of the Serie A scoring charts, and I'd much rather he'd be there.
Well, even that's interesting, because there's a lot of room for criticism on Zlatan, especially in the last game against Hellas Verona. But at the same time, like you said, he's still being decisive. You could blame him for the goal getting called off, the missed penalty that was skyrocketed, the free kick that was skyrocketed, all these terrible things he did, and yet somehow he's still the hero of the game because he got the equalizer in stoppage time. It's such a strange situation with Zlatan, and it's more props to him than anything that he could have a complete howler of a game and still pull something out of thin air.
Yeah, on that game, it's funny, I think it was Gazzetta dello Sport who basically said it like, no matter how bad a game he's having, you just can't keep him out of the headlines. And that's a really good way of putting it. Like, he'd done everything wrong up until that point, let's be totally honest. But where perhaps other players, other strikers in particular, and we've had our fair share of them, would mentally implode after missing a penalty or after missing golden chances, being responsible for a disallowed goal, whatever it might be. Zlatan makes sure he's there in the 93rd minute, and he wasn't even happy when he scored the goal, because I think he knew that he'd had a bad game. I think he knew that the team should have had more if he'd have scored his penalty, if things had gone the way that they should have. And I kind of like that. And I also I wrote a feature about it about his biggest contribution not even necessarily being on the pitch during that game, but what he said after the game.
I agree.
Where he came out to the media and he basically admitted for the first time some, not vulnerability, but like...
That he's human.
He's not invincible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's like, I'm mentally tired. I need rest. First of all, good on him for saying that. Thank God. You know, he's got 2 weeks off now to recharge, but I just hope that he has the same honest conversations with Pioli, otherwise he's lying to his coach. But I think he does. And then he said about the penalties too, like, some in that situation would have let the media speculate over the next 2 weeks, over the international break, about penalty duties, about what's going to happen. Zlatan, being the leader that he is, took initiative of the situation and basically said, no, I'm letting Kessie take the next one. That's it. Done and dusted. Issue over.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you get your day of headlines out of it. Zlatan's missed 4 out of 6 penalties. He's given away the penalty-taking duties, but he didn't let that issue simmer at all.
Right.
He just cut it dead
Well,
and said it's not me
anymore.
You know?
If maybe he has that conversation in private. Say he doesn't say it to the media, but he tells Pioli and tells Kessie, look, I've missed 3 of the last 5. Kessie, you take the next one. I'm okay with stepping back. Now that the media sees that in the next game or next penalty, whenever it is, but we don't know that he said that. And now there's this internal turmoil. You know, Pioli's taking Zlatan's penalties.
That's true, yeah.
He's mad at Kessie. Like, all this stuff that's just not there that he completely avoided. And that just comes with, 20 years in the sport at the highest level. He knows how things work. So he's like, just get it out of the way. The worst they could do is slate me for having a bad game, but they can't slate me for what happens after if I just own up to it immediately. And that shows A, maturity, but B, like you said, humanity. He's not invincible. We all know that, even if we don't believe it at times because he is Zlatan. But I don't know, a part of me was like a little worried to see it for the first time in his career where he's like, I need a break. I have this fog. I'm not here. I think he even said, like, in front of goal, he didn't have his instinct or something like that.
Yeah, his usual sharpness, yeah.
Yeah, and that's worrisome, because we know he came back from Corona, so he's fighting through that as one, 2, this exhaustion of just playing nonstop. 3, he's 40 years old. Like I know we keep saying age is just a number because it is, and he's showing it, but at the same time, like, he's also showing his age now. So it's this very strange. It's a back and forth battle with Zlatan versus Zlatan. I don't know. I've never seen anything like it.
It's hard, yeah.
Crazy.
It's hard, and I think perhaps if Maddie were here, he'd be ramming down our throats that he said that things would eventually kind of fall off for him, and I think perhaps we're so used to this facade that he puts up in the media of being invincible and of being the guys like, my shoulders are big enough to carry the team and stuff like that. And for the first time, he didn't come out and say that. And I think people were a bit shocked by it. But I like it because in doing so, I think he's obviously really, really clever. As you say, he's had 20 years at the highest level doing these kind of media interviews. But in a subliminal way, he took the pressure off the rest of the team by again creating the headlines about himself, about him admitting to his own mistakes, about being tired and stuff. And it stopped there being big front page spreads about how bad we were defensively, because we were, about other chances that were missed, about, has Pioli lost his magic touch, whatever it might be. I think it was really clever. He deflected stuff away from the rest of his teammates, and no doubt if he comes back and scores against Napoli, he'll be back in front of the camera talking about how he's a lion.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, I admire it, and I mean, I'll ask this question now because we might as well talk about the bad as well as the somewhat good from that game. Marco Villela asks, do we have a problem with set pieces? Are we becoming complacent or just tired? So as a start, we've conceded, not directly, but we've conceded 7 goals this season now, and 6 of them have come from set piece situations.
Yeah, this isn't new. Set pieces have been our weakness for a decade, so I'm not shocked by that. I think we've always been poor in taking them, when we do it, as well as trying to defend them. It's just, that's always been an area of our game that I wish we could magically improve, but it just doesn't seem like we can. I don't know what it is.
Just to throw it in there now as a stat, we've had 46 corners this season and not scored from a single one.
Exactly. That sums it up right there. How many penalties have we had as well? We've had 5 penalties, missed 3, something like that. 6 penalties, missed 3?
Yes.
Yeah. We're not
6,
good at set pieces on either side. We haven't been for a while. So it is what it is. I do think we're getting tired because there was a streak there where we were getting decently better at defending them, but obviously 6 out of 7 goals conceded from a set piece is not a good look. So it is what it is.
It needs to. I mean, I will throw out there at this point. I think it's still 4 from 7 directly, but for example, the two that were conceded against Hellas were
Yeah.
the first one was a header from a corner that then bounced back, so therefore it's no longer a direct set piece, but it came from it because he stabbed in the rebound, and then the other one was the free kick that was cleared, so it's no longer directly from the free kick, but the shot deflected off Calabria and in. 2-0 down after 19 minutes after the game that we had against Lille. I was sat there, didn't say a word. I was watching the game with my dad. I didn't really say a word. I was miserable. I thought, this is it. We've been figured out now. So in that sense, can now look back at the game positively and think it's a point gained. But
Yeah.
the more that time goes on, do we feel like it's too dropped? Like, we had the chances to really pull off an amazing comeback there.
Yeah, it is. It's 2 points dropped. You look at, yes, this year Hellas is the best team defensively in the league. Before this game, they'd only conceded 3 all season. You can't overlook that and, discredit this team. But ultimately, they're not a contender for top 4. They're not a contender for top 6 even. So we were expected to win this game. It was the difference between 4 points on top or 2 points on top. And we're 2 points, and now we got to go against someone who could potentially pass us if we lose against Napoli. So these were big points in the long run. However, the overall goal is still top 4. It's not Scudetto. Now, when you're in first, you got to amend that goal to stay in first, obviously. So right now, it's 2 points dropped. However, later on in the season, I think we'll be looking at it as 1 point gain, just given the performance. But then there was opportunities, man. There were the penalty. If the penalty goes in, if the penalty goes in and it's 2-2 right then, do we have the balls to go for
The drive, yeah.
for that 93rd? I mean, we had 2 goals in stoppage time. One was called off. If we scored that penalty, I'd be surprised if either of those goals even happened. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think big thing for me was that we got the goal back before half time. I thought, having 45 minutes to really come at them, given that we've seen that we can be free scoring when we want, I thought that we'd find 2 goals.
But we did dominate the second half as well.
Yeah.
And I think around the 60th, I texted you and said, we're winning this, by the way, and I was obviously wrong. But,
yeah.
I felt it too. I was confident.
The penalty came from pressure. It was a corner that was cleared and it was whipped back into a dangerous area, and Matteo Lovato, will come on to him actually, booted through the back of Kessier. And if that penalty goes in, I really think we have the time to go on and push for a winner, because Hellas had already made their bed at that point. They were trying to defend that 2-1 win, and they didn't have. I don't think they had the players on the pitch to go and get a third goal, and there would have been another goal. So therefore, by process of elimination, I think it would have gone to us. But at the same time,
they made a late substitution. I'm going to look up who it was, but I thought he was a threat. God, their winger.
I'll tell you who I did like. The guy who was playing on the left for them, who rinsed Calabria a couple of times, Zakanya. He looked really, really good.
That was the guy, right? He came on in the end?
No, he was on for most of the game. But he looked really good, quick, agile. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of left-sided players.
Cauley, he came on for the last 26
minutes.
Oh, yeah,
Cauley, yeah.
I thought he did great, and I thought he was going to get another one.
Yeah, honestly, I know you say that Hellas are not a contender for top 6. They shouldn't be, in theory, if all of the usual top 6 at least perform to a normal level. But they've got a good team. I look at the way that their team's built, and it's pretty good. They're not as good as, say, Sassuolo, but I think that De Zerbi, who manages Sassuolo, and Ivan Juric, who manages Hellas Verona, are both really good at making the best of what they've got. And I think for that reason, Hellas Verona will comfortably be in the top 10, probably between the 10th to 7th mark, but that's really good for them. You've got to remember that it were only 3 years ago that they were in Serie B, and Chievo Verona were the bigger team in Verona. That's meant
for a while they were switching every year. One would be A, one would be B.
Yeah. So I kind of like what they've built there. We got to have a little bit of a look at Matteo Lovato, and I'll throw the question out there now because we got one. It was from Rohit Rajiv. Who's the better Lovato, Demi or Matteo?
Matteo, definitely. I would imagine Matteo's never been to drug rehab, so there's that.
Yeah, God, I forgot that about Demi. What show was she in as a kid?
Oh, I don't know. She was in a lot of Disney stuff, I think.
Yeah, she was in a Disney program, which we used to get over here. It was one of the few things that we got. But yeah, that I think Matteo's probably a better footballer. I'm pretty confident
Yeah,
on that one.
might be a better singer too.
But
I've heard Demi. Oof, that's no good.
especially now with the nasal thing. So leading up to the game, there've been reports in the media that it was basically going to be an audition for Matteo Lovato in front of Paolo Maldini. It's a bit of backstory to those who don't know too much about him. They signed him from Padova. He's 20 years old. And he's just basically become a first-team regular this season. There's actually a lot of parallels with Matteo Gabbia in terms of his development and breaking into the senior team and getting games at 20. And I must admit, he had the first time I saw him properly was when Hellas played Juventus away and drew 1-1, and he stood out. I was like, who is this kid? And then I looked and saw that he was 20. And then, of course, the week after, we were linked with him for the first time, and I was pretty happy. Since come out that it's like 15-20 million valuation, which for a player with 7 Serie A appearances seems a little bit high.
Yeah.
But I did like what I saw from him. The penalty aside, which I think was a youthful error to make, it wasn't necessarily a fault of technique. It was just he was hungry to get to a ball and he just mistimed it by a split second. I think that aside, I thought he had a really, really good game. Was one of the two that kept Ibra quiet and, well, quiet-ish. And he looks pretty composed for a 20-year-old. I just... It seems to be gathering a lot of speed. Both Milan News and Gazzetta dello Sport and Calcio Mercato have all said that we're in talks with Hellas, we're in talks with his agent and all this kind of stuff. So maybe this could be like our Skriniar moment, where we swoop in and we actually we just poach a talent and just take a gamble on them, and it might actually work out.
It seems like that's been our plan for a while now with all of our transfers outside of the obvious Zlatan, but it's been working, so why not? I agree. I think you look good, and you mentioned his penalty. I agree it was just a youthful mistake, but you look at the type of penalties we're used to conceding, Conti and Calabria throwing hands in the box everywhere. I would take the penalty Lovato conceded over a handball penalty 10 times out of 10. At least one has the opportunity to A, not get called, and B, win a ball. Whereas what we're used to is just kind of playing basketball, and that's not going to work. So I'm all for it. 10 to 15 in today's market, that's about as cheap as you're going to get a decent player, especially a youthful one. So it can't hurt. You look at Romagnoli, who came back from injury and got slated for 2 games and then got injured in warm up before Hellas. So he wasn't ready to come back anyway. So we definitely still need another defender. Even if Alessio's completely healed and ready to go by January, we need another defender. We can't have Musacchio and Duarte as backups who are both in and out of injury all the time. Gabbia looks decent, but it's not enough. We need someone else, so I'm okay with it.
Do you think that the defender that we need, and I say this because there was, just going based on what the media is saying, whether you believe these sources or not, Tuttosport was the paper that said this, so you can take it with a pinch of salt, but let's take the idea of it. Said that there are 6 defenders in particular that we're monitoring. So there's Lovato, who's 20. Ozan Kabak from Schalke, who I think we've talked about before, who's 20 years old. Per Schuurs from Ajax, who's been called the next De Ligt and all that stuff, 20 years old. Nikola Milenkovic, who's 22. And who's the last one? Should know. No, Christopher Ayer from Celtic, who's 22. Yeah. So all of these, maximum age 22. Is it the right move to bring in another inexperienced centre-back when, really we've got Gabbia there who is exactly that?
Yes, and here's why. Kjaer is our best centre-back right now. He's also our oldest. No one's starting over him, and Romagnoli's captain. So whoever we bring in is going to have to be okay with being on the bench and developing on the bench and just learning right now. So even if we get someone young and talented, they might make a few appearances here and there, but they're not going to be an out-and-out starter, not this season. So get another young guy, and it's okay if they learn. And if anything, it's going to help Gabia get better as well. He's going to have that competition, and he's going to need to fight for that spot. So I think it's the right call, yes. Because eventually, Kier's going to retire. He's 32, 31. He's going to be moving on in a couple seasons at most, 2 or 3. Um, and who knows if Romagnoli ever reaches his levels again. So we definitely need someone waiting in the wings who's going to be able to take that spot.
I do think we should probably mention a little bit more about Romagnoli. I mean, I'm still willing to personally give him the benefit of the doubt because he had a 3-month injury layoff, and it wasn't like a Rebic injury, his arm or whatever. It was a bad calf injury. It was a calf tear, and I think players are always a little bit cautious with muscle injuries to that degree when they come back, that they don't want to overstretch it or do a bit more damage. I'm not saying that he was rushed back, but there's a difference between being fit enough to play in a game and being match fit, being 90 minutes fit.
Well, we also
and ready
changed
for the
how our
intensity.
defense lines up while he's been injured.
So that was the next point.
Now we're playing with a much higher line. He's not used to that, so you see he's killing the offside trap. Every single time he's just sitting back, and that's how we used to play. Was we didn't have the offside trap. We invited the pressure so that we could play out the back. Now we're not doing that. Now we're like, either you're offside or we're going to steal it before you even get a chance to get that ball to your attacker. He's not ready. He's not there yet. He's only had 2-3 weeks of real training back, so he needs time to, I guess, develop all over again. It won't take as long as a new player, but he needs time.
He does, and I hope that it comes, because there's obviously a player in there. He's been called up for Italy, which is a whole other discussion.
So frustrating that that's the case.
The current round of internationals is pointless. I mean, there was friendly football on today, and I'm thinking,
Why?
Like, it's not as if that's the only game for the break, because the majority of the 15 players that we've sent on international duty are playing 3 games, or there are 3 fixtures for their country during this break, which is ludicrous because only 2 of them are competitive. So just play the 2 competitive games and that's it. I just don't understand. And with basically Europe in the grips of a second wave of the pandemic, it's the worst time possible to do it. Norway, where Hauge's gone, their games had to be cancelled. Kier hasn't been called up for Denmark team because there was a case in their camp, so they're trying to keep them separate.
Meanwhile, Mancini's calling up a 41-man squad list for Italy. It's just insane. And there's no reason to call Romagnoli at all. A, his performance doesn't deserve it. B, he needs to adapt to our team again. He needs these 2 weeks of no competition, just relearning our system, getting better. That's what he needs.
See, he's injured. Like, he shouldn't have gone because he couldn't play in our game on Sunday because he has a hip problem. The next day, like by midday, he was already with the national team. That to me doesn't make any sense. If a player couldn't play the day before, we shouldn't have sent him. We should have just said, no, I'm sorry, we couldn't use him, so neither can you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the way that it's ended up is that he's stayed in Coverciano, which is where the national team's headquarters are, and he's had his medical test there, and they think that he's going to be fit to play the next 2 games. But I must hope they don't, because he's just going to re-aggravate the injury again, and we're not going to have him for Napoli. And then there's the whole thing of certain teams haven't had to send their players, into the one of them because their 3rd choice goalkeeper got COVID, so they didn't have to send them. Fiorentina the same. It's like there's so much selective treatment going on, and we're one of the clubs that are at a massive disadvantage because of it.
And we've had recent cases as well. We had Donnarumma, we had Zlatan.
Hauge.
Yeah, Hauge. We've had so many people. It doesn't make any sense to me why we're still being forced to send our players.
Whole thing's a joke. I mean, like, England had a friendly lined up for tomorrow night that's been cancelled. So rather than do the logical thing and just not have a game, we've decided to fly in Ireland, Republic of Ireland, for a friendly game. Why? I mean, we play them in friendlies enough as it is. There's no need to do it. We've got 2 games. Anyway, I almost feel like it doesn't even warrant us wasting our breath at international football, but it is what it is. So that's the situation that we've got. Back to the centre-back thing. I mean, yeah, it's right about Romagnoli suffering with playing a higher line as opposed to a deep line. That's why he was certainly one of the players thriving under Gattuso, you know. And also under Gattuso, it's worth remembering, he had Ricardo Rodriguez to his left, who's a much more defensive fullback. You know, he wouldn't be caught in the opposition's final third many times, whereas Teo Hernandez basically functions as a winger at times. So he doesn't have that cover. I think he sometimes tries to overcompensate and do too much. And it's when that happens that you can see it start to affect our whole system, because Kessié gets dragged over, Benacer ends up in the middle, Calabria ends up exposed, and then teams switch the player to target that. So there are still bits of balance that we're working out. I think you can make a really strong argument at the moment that Gabia is probably the most up to speed partner that we have for Kier at this point. But you know, got to see how he is post COVID and stuff. He seemed okay in the game against Hellas Verona. Can't really put him down for any major errors for the goals or anything, and he had 90 minutes in him, which was good. But yeah, we'll see. I think a defender's definitely coming in January. We'll just have to see who it is. I think if I had to pick, it seems the profile we're going with, for the reasons that you said about them having to accept growing behind another couple of defenders, maybe three. The profile's going to be young, with potential, not going to break the bank. I think probably Kabak is the best in that sort of ballpark of names that we're talking about. However, in terms of the most ready-made, it's probably Milenkovic, but it's just whether we can manage to get his price tag down at all from 40 mil. You know, we've spoken about that at length before. I think he will be cheaper in January, but I don't know if cheap enough if we've got 15 mil to work with, let's say. But Kabak's pretty good. You know, there's a reason Liverpool are chasing him pretty strongly as well. I think he's a victim of playing for a bad team. You know, you might have said before, when we signed Benacer, why would we sign a midfielder from a relegated team? People might say the same about Kabak. Why would you sign a defender from a bad team? Well, you know, funnily enough, there can be good players on bad teams. So I'd kind of be behind it, but I'm sure we'll hear more and more. An interesting thing that's come out over the last week, though, is that we apparently still want Dominic Szoboszlai.
Yeah, I'm for it.
I don't know how I feel about it. I thought that ship had sailed without Ralph.
I'm still for it. I mean, I don't know. Is he more of a right wing or attacking mid?
More of an attacking mid, yeah.
It depends on what happens with the Hakan situation. You know, I do think we need someone who is an out-and-out backup. And I don't know if he would be just a backup. I think he could give Hakan a good run for his money there. No pun intended, since he wants a renewal. But
nice.
We need, I think, more importantly, a right wing. I don't think getting a vice attacking mid is the most necessary move right now. But if we don't get this renewal, if he signs a pre-contract with United, then we absolutely need to do something. But we also don't have to do it immediately in January, you know? So it's a low-level necessity, if that makes sense.
At this point, yeah, I think we'd only start pursuing attacking midfielders if the Hakan thing completely broke down. It does need to be sorted before January, because you don't want to go into the January window with Çalhanoğlu able to sign a pre-contract with another team. But Fabrizio Romano said earlier this evening that it's not United. It won't be United. It was never in talks with them. Understandable, you know, they've got Bruno Fernandes, they've got Van der Beek, who they don't even use. They've got players in that position. Knew it wouldn't be them. Didn't rule out that it could be another team. I'm at that point. I think we rushed Hakan back from his ankle injury a little bit, and he's not really got firing again. We're starting to kind of see... He's not been awful by any means in any of the games, but we're kind of seeing the misfiring Hakan again a little bit. You know, he was never going to keep up that goal per game pace. He wasn't. It'd be unrealistic to expect him to score and assist at a striker's rate. However, he's now kind of gone back to not doing much at all. You know, and people don't want to address that as the elephant in the room, but he's not been particularly brilliant. And Brahim's looked that little bit better. He's come on twice and made more of a positive impact.
Do we think Brahim's going to be made permanent? It doesn't sound like Zlatan wants to allow that. It sounds like the price is going to be a little high.
Depends who you believe. I mean, the Spanish sources are saying that Real Madrid won't let him go. They won't lose control of him. Whereas the reputable Italian sources are all adamant that we're going to talk to Real Madrid and at the very least extend his loan for another year. which is like having him on a 2-year contract, which, you know, I wouldn't hate at all. It gives us a bit more time to work out what the situation is there. But I think if his value is 25 million now, and it's true that Elliott are willing to sort of stump up the money for an investment on a young player, then I think you do it. I think you just bite the bullet and say, let's get it done, because I think his price is only going to go up. He's playing more, he's doing better. He's admitted in the week to being happy where he is with us, because he can actually play. And also he can cover multiple roles, as we've talked about before. So I think that one's a bit of a no-brainer, really. But then he's either going to be back up to Hakan if he signs a renewal, or he's going to be our new starting attacking midfielder and we bring in another attacking midfielder to be his backup, or we sign a new attacking midfielder and he's back to being a backup. There's a lot of different situations, a lot of different ways that could work out. Szoboszlai, it doesn't surprise me, because we've clearly got our radar fine-tuned to search for young talents who are going to be available for sort of less than 30 mil. So it doesn't surprise me that his name's still on the wish list, because he's doing fantastic things again this season with Salzburg. His release clause is still 25 mil, so while Everett's at that, I think we're going to be tempted. You know, we managed to agree terms with him once before; it shouldn't be a problem again. But I still think he ends up at Leipzig. To be honest, it seems too obvious a move, and yeah, the German press is saying that Leipzig are keen. It's them too, man. Both Red Bull clubs, aren't they? So that's another thing. You know, they're basically sending them to the next step up in their same organisation. So I think it makes sense. But goodness knows. I mean, the Tauvin rumours are carrying on for the right wing spot. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think Samu's days with us are numbered, to be honest.
Yeah, if we can make that a swap deal, perfect. That would be best case scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Best case scenario.
Now, the interesting thing is, and I don't know if this is cheeky, but I'd be asking Marseille for money, because Castillejo's contracted until 2022. We've seen with Paqueta, who's doing quite well for Lyon by all accounts, that, you know, just because he's struggling for us doesn't mean that he's not going to go to France and do well. Whereas Tauvin could literally join us on a free transfer in June. So I'd be saying, give us a bit of money and we'll give you a player that's got a bit more contractual security, and we'll get the guy that you would otherwise lose for nothing. You know, I think that would be a fair deal. And there's no question about Tauvin's pedigree. Since moving back to Marseille after a fairly difficult time in England, he's been absolutely outstanding. He's one of the top scorers in Ligue 1 this season. He's winning them points. He is basically everything that we need. And there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, he'd play a different role to Salama because he doesn't track back as much. Blah. They've not seen him play. Like, if you were to watch him play, the amount of times that he tucks in to protect the right back, and the thing that makes him so special is his ability to receive the ball back to goal on the halfway line and spin one way or the other and then they're away, and he ends up scoring from that situation. I've been convinced for a while. I've bored you to death with it, but I'm convinced that he would be a success for us.
No, I agree.
And
you wrote a feature about it over the summer, and I was convinced then. So plug that again.
I might do. Well, I wrote it when we weren't even linked at all.
Yeah, no, you
like
started
not one
the
bit.
links.
I wrote it was like this. I was like, this guy, by the way, is available on a free next year. We should definitely be having a look at him. But everyone said no because injury prone, blah blah blah. He'd had one bad injury, and it only looked worse because lockdown meant that he'd been out for more months, but it was only because he couldn't play a game because there were no games. So then he come back, and I think he's proven that he's over the injury.
Yeah,
you know, he's been mint this season, scored the winner against or he scored against PSG anyway. Good, like him. What else is there from a question? No, thinking we had a game to preview, but we don't. International break, great stuff.
Yeah, that's it, unless there's more questions.
So this is a good one from Rohit again. With Rebic now fit, would you consider Leão to be a good potential right wing option? Now he played there.
Did he?
He played there against.
Oh yes. At the end of Hellas, we swapped. We switched him over there when Rebic came on for a little bit, and then he went down the middle.
And then he limped off, didn't he? But
he did go off. I was thinking Zlatan came on.
Yeah, but
and then
he's okay. But he did go off. But when Rebic came on, Leão did switch to being on the right, and he looked pretty good. I mean, it's nice to have the option. I don't think he is a natural right winger at all.
I don't think it's a solution, but it's a nice worst case scenario. I mean, he obviously could play anywhere in the attacking trident, so that's nice.
Perhaps it's a wild card,
Mm-hmm.
because teams study what they expect their opponent's starting lineup to be, but they also study the changes that they'll make in shape and in terms of personnel substitutions. Probably Hellas Verona did not have in their preparations Leão switching to being a right winger.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a wild card in that sense. So I like it, and he gives the fullback a different proposition. He's all of a sudden got to deal with someone with a lot of pace and trickery who's very direct, whereas Salamarcus and Castillejo are just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
They're more involved in different things. So I think wild card is what I put it down as, basically.
Yeah.
But we do
I'll
have a
take
bit
it
of a
over
logjam now.
Castillejo.
Anything at this point. I mean, I defended the decision to play him in the Europa League for the first 3 games because I figured we either turn him into a semi-useful asset by letting him play himself into form against, with no disrespect, lesser opponents in the Europa League, or he's completely useless to us. It's proven to be the latter, unfortunately. He's reverted back into his former self. He can't do anything right, and he knows now that he's under pressure, so he's trying too hard. He's making all the wrong decisions. Change of scenery. I can totally imagine him going back to Spain with like a Sevilla or was it Sociedad who were linked and being a bit of a success again there. But I think it's for the best now that we start looking for some alternative accommodation in January and just get whatever we can or whatever method we can do it, get the Talvin deal over the line, because he could be the difference between a title challenge and just a struggle for a top 4 finish. If we've got 4 players in that front with like Ibra, Rebic/Leão, Çalhanoğlu, and then Talvin, who are all capable of scoring double figures goals per season, then we've got a pretty nice offensive spread there in terms of threat. So, no brainer. Where are we? I'm going to look at the tweet, actually, because I've lost everything else.
Yeah, we had a decent amount, actually.
Yeah, so, be right, Rocky Award. Thoughts on that clip of Ibra and Pioli before the post-match interview? Did you see that?
I liked it a lot.
Well, that was quite funny.
It showed that Pioli
Ibra did genuinely look like he was crying at one point. But
yeah, it showed more humanity from Zlatan, and it showed a personal side of Pioli that the players see that we don't see too often. Everyone's always talked about how great Pioli's been to them on a personal level, but that was the first time we've seen it. And to see it with someone like Zlatan, who just the last game out against Lille, he's swearing at Pioli as he's being subbed off. It shows that there's still that bond, and I don't know. It made me want to choke up. Even though even though Zlatan's a 40-year-old man and doesn't need like a father figure, that's still kind of how you see it. It's like your dad saying, "Hey, it's okay, champ. You did good."
That's the way I saw it. That's the way I saw it. It was like was almost as if his son had missed a penalty or whatever, and could see that.
Did you hear? Was it Salamakers when Zlatan missed the penalties? Like Zlatan, it's okay, Zlatan.
It's okay. Yeah, tell him to calm down. I like that though. It's as if they're not scared
and that
to say stuff too.
How Zlatan was reacting. Obviously, for people like yo, it's all good, man. Like that means he obviously.
He's not going to tell him he's shy, is he?
Yeah, right.
What the fuck? Salamakers like gobbing off it. So yeah, I thought that was good. Like you say, it's a human moment, and you don't get to see that an awful lot. I do think that Ibra gets this portrayal by the media of sort of being the out and out leader, the disciplinarian, the one who makes sure everybody's levels are 100%. Blah blah blah. Then to see him look almost crestfallen before that post match interview, and for Pioli to come along and say, "Chin up, we got a draw, be happy." Mm-hmm. I think he joked with him about the penalty as well and said something about that's your last penalty. And then Ibra then touched on that straight away in the interview and said, "I missed the curver, that's why I sent the ball up there," which I thought was pretty funny as well.
No, that's a great response. That's a very Zlatan style reply.
Yeah, absolutely. Ev Morris, if you could, this is a good question. If you could right now, would you sign a contract that Milan finish 4th at the end of the season? Justify why or why not.
So it's saying,
do you want to go first?
Continue the season as is, or just stop it now and get fourth?
I think it's. I don't know actually. I guess it's just like
guarantee fourth place, or
yeah, you can sign. Yeah, you can sign now and guarantee fourth place, or you can let it run and we might finish lower, but we might finish higher.
I want to say let it run, but at the same time, I'm like, just like if you could guarantee it when we've been struggling, you should probably take that.
Now I'll go first then, because I thought about this pretty quickly. I don't think we're gonna win the league. I think we've shown our frailties and our shortcomings in the last couple of games. I know we ended up drawing against Roma and against Hellas. It's not the end of the world, but eventually we are going to lose a game. Eventually there are going to be accusations that the wheels have fallen off. We might have to deal with more injuries. We might have to deal with COVID, whatever it might be. I don't think we're going to win the league. I think the cream will rise to the top, and pains me to say it, but I think Juve, because of their squad, regardless of Pirlo, I think they've got a frightening squad. Juve, Inter, will maybe even Atalanta, God knows about them, will certainly be catching up, breathing down our necks soon. And therefore, I'm willing to sign for fourth, because Champions League football, don't care how it comes, is so important to us in terms of the revenue that it brings, in terms of us attracting the best players. You know, it doesn't matter that we're missing Champions League football this season. That's one thing that we've at least established, is that, you know, Inter are not going to get a single game in the Champions League in front of their own fans, because they're going to crash out bottom of the group. They're going to miss out on all that match. I'm happy that, you know, if we get in, it'll be next season, and hopefully there'll be fans. Yeah. Our first game back will be in front of a full stadium. You know, that's going to make a big difference. So I'll sign immediately, because I don't think we're going to win the league, and I don't think there's much difference finishing second, third, fourth. So I'll take fourth all day.
Okay, well then I'm going to disagree just for the sake of disagreeing, but in reality, I'm on board with everything you just said. I said it earlier, so I'm just gonna push harder on this, even though I'm there with you. You're in first until you're not in first. Your goal is to stay there. So continue the season. That's the only objective reason I have to not saying take fourth now, because it's week 8. You know, whatever. Like you take fourth.
I think you can make a solid case. You can make a solid case in that Inter have won 3 out of 10 games all season, and they really haven't got clicking at all. Juve have not got firing under Pirlo, and I think it's going to take a little bit more time until they start proper battering teams again, if they do this season. Atalanta, we'll see. I'm still convinced that eventually they're going to burn out or something. I don't understand how they can keep going like this. Napoli have been good. Granted, I think Napoli are going to be in top 4 this year, one way or another. And yeah, I don't know. There is an argument that perhaps this is a season where everything kind of aligns, and there is one team that surprisingly wins it out of nowhere just by having an above-average season rather than doing anything ridiculous.
So I'm just kind of looking at the table right now. If we lose to Napoli, there's a very real chance we could drop straight down to 5th.
Yeah, exactly.
Just immediately crash out, and just imagine the turmoil that'll be on Twitter if we go from 1st to 5th in one game. Oof.
I think it goes to show we're in a bit of a hyperinflated position at the moment. Not that we haven't earned it, but hyperinflated in the sense that it's giving us this security of people saying, well, aim for 1st, and if you don't, then you'll finish in the top 4 at least. Like you say, we're one bad result away from not being in the top 4 at all, and all of a sudden the pressure's
Well, and remember, that's how it was this season with Gattuso, that we were 1 point off. We spent multiple weeks at the top. I think Christmas we were at the top, right? Or at least in 3rd, or something like that?
We got back into the top 4 towards the end of the season. We had a really bad start to the season, and that was when Gattuso came in, and he hoisted us up into the top 4, and then we just dropped down a bit again.
I believe we got as high as 3rd and a point or a couple points off second. I think
after we beat Roma 2-0 away, I think we did go up into 3rd. But the
position doesn't matter as much as the gap.
consistency is going to be so important for us this season. Like, we talked so many times about how we drop points in early games of the season. It's been a downfall for us because we've been looking back and being like, if you add those 6 points on whatever,
right,
we're in a much better position. I think as long as we take care of business in the games where we're expected to and it's not a toss-up result, then, and if we can spring a couple of surprises along the way, like beating Roma away or beating Lazio away, whatever it might be, taking 3 points in games where you'd normally just expect a point or even nothing, then it'll all counterbalance. Like that Hellas result doesn't look a bad result if we go to Napoli and win, or even if we go to Napoli and draw. And then, like I've said in that fixture announcement episode that we did, we don't have any Murderers Row schedule things anymore. You know, we had Inter and Roma back-to-back. Is that right?
No. Inter was 4th. But you're right. Yeah,
no, I think we did it. Yeah, we had Inter and Roma back-to-back, and we'll have that again later in the season. But apart from that, we never have two of the, you know, the big powerhouses back-to-back at any point.
We don't play Juve till January, but I could have sworn there was another game either right prior or 2 weeks prior, something like that.
I think we play Juve and Lazio in quick succession, but it's not back-to-back. I think it's twice in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which could be important because it's like, you know, no points from 2 games or whatever looks pretty bad, but if you sandwich a win in between, then it's... Anyway, Darren Torres, what do you think will happen if Kessié takes the next penalty and misses? That's fantastic.
I like that question. Yeah, we're just not going to score. You know, we just give up penalties. We just forego. Like, look, it's not even worth it.
I think we give it to Kier from then on. We just let him step up and put his foot through it. Kessié's penalty record. So there's an interesting stat. Kessié scored 18 goals since he joined Milan. We've not lost in any of the games that he's scored in. We've won 14 of those 18. And also he scored 9 out of 10 penalties for us. And the other one he didn't miss, it was a good save by Sorrentino for Kiev. So, there you go.
What is Hakan's penalty shot like?
He's got a good penalty,
I would imagine someone who's so good at free kicks would have a great penalty as well.
So good at free kicks. All those free kicks that he scored for us. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
He's anyone who's good at set pieces should, in theory, have a good penalty on them because they're good at striking a dead ball. I've often thought that about Benacer. Benacer, by the way, takes a much better corner for us than Calhanoglu does.
Yes, he does. Yeah,
so does Tonali, actually. Yeah. Calhanoglu scored 2 really good pens at Rio Ave. He scored the 120th minute to send it to pens.
Yeah.
And then he scored his pen in the exact same way.
And he was freezing cold. I remember he had the blanket on. He was hating life.
So maybe he's an option. Who knows? But that would be funny if Kessié stepped up and missed. And that is the last question. Conscious to try and keep it under an hour.
Yeah, well, we're at 58 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Good stuff. Thank you everyone for listening and watching along. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. And a reminder to go and follow at the number 1, SempreMilan, our backup account for now. And of course, you know, we'll post updates if our other one's back. And also be sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We're trying to build up that subscriber count, the like count, stuff like that. In the meantime, while we don't have the main Twitter. Been joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Yep, follow me on Twitter at Torgrud45. That's all I got.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have a good guest on next week. I'd say like all the others aren't good guests, but hopefully, we'll have another guest on next week. Be more details about that, I'm sure, or we might just spring it as a surprise. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you in a week's time.
Bella palla per Rebic, Ibra, Rebic, il tiro, gol!